All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a pretty shocking contradiction today. This stark juxtaposition between the world's greatest symbol of love and a terrifying story of extreme cruelty. The Taj Mahal is an undisputed architectural marvel, right? But for centuries, this really dark shadow has lingered over its gleaming white domes.
It's a massive historical question, one that's drawn millions of views online across documentaries and forums. Did Emperor Shah Jahan actually order the mutilation of his own workers just to make sure his masterpiece could never be copied? Well, today, we're going to objectively investigate the sources and separate the factual history from the folklore.
Section 1. A Promise Born in Grief.
To really understand where this gruesome myth comes from, we've got to rewind a bit to 1631. In the city of Burhanpur, Prince Khurram, who history remembers as the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, suffered an absolutely devastating loss. His wife, Mumtaz Mahal, passed away. And she wasn't just his romantic partner, you know? She was his most trusted advisor, deeply involved in the daily affairs of his empire. Her death just completely shattered the emperor.
Legend tells us that right on her deathbed, she asked him for a monument of unmatched beauty. Driven by this intense love and sorrow, Shah Jahan made a promise that would literally change architectural history forever. He vowed to build her a resting place so incredibly magnificent that the world would never, ever forget her.
Section 2. Engineering an Ancient Wonder.
Keeping a promise of this magnitude, that required a construction effort unlike anything the world had ever seen. The tragedy struck in 1631, and by 1632, they were already breaking ground. But check out that end date, 1653. It was right at this exact moment of completion that the dark legend of amputation first started to spread through whispers and rumors.
The sheer scale of the operation was just staggering. We're talking about an astonishing 20,000 artisans, stone carvers, laborers, and animal handlers working day and night. I mean, just imagine the logistics of feeding, housing, and organizing an entire temporary city of workers, all dedicated to this one singular vision.
And it took 22 grueling years to bring this brilliant white Makrana marble vision to life. That's over 2 decades of relentless chiseling, lifting, and designing. Entire generations of craftsmen poured their absolute best years into this single structure.
Now, the engineering behind this is actually fascinating. Remember, we're in the 17th century here. They couldn't exactly order a few tons of modern Portland cement. So instead, they used this highly durable organic paste. They mixed jaggery, batasha, which are these sweet sugar drops, and bell juice, a wood apple extract. Yeah, you heard that right. This bizarre, completely natural mortar is exactly what holds those giant marble slabs together to this very day.
Section 3. Investigating the Dark Myth.
So let's fast forward back to 1653 when the monument was finally finished. The scaffolding comes down, the Taj is gleaming, and suddenly, well, the rumors start. The story goes that Shah Jahan was so terrified someone might build a structure to rival his beloved's tomb that he ordered his soldiers to amputate the hands of all the artisans. But here's the thing. When we actually look into the archives, historians point out there is absolutely zero concrete evidence of this event. I'm talking no court documents, no medical records of a mass amputation, no contemporary accounts. Literally nothing.
And you know what the biggest logical flaw in this whole folklore is? It centers around the project's own chief architect, a man named Ustad Ahmad Lahori. Think about it. If you're going to try to prevent a building from being replicated, you'd naturally start with the mastermind who actually drew the blueprints, right?
Well, I want to pose a question to you. If their hands were truly cut off, how in the world did these exact same artisans and architects, including our guy Ustad Ahmad Lahori, later go on to build magnificent Mughal structures like the Red Fort and Jama Masjid in Delhi? You simply can't lay the foundations for a massive fortress without your hands. The historical timeline completely, totally shatters the myth.
Section 4. The Truth Behind the Tale.
So you gotta wonder, how does such a specific, horrifying story get accepted as absolute fact by so many people for hundreds of years? Well, when we compare the myth directly with historical reality, we find something entirely different. Instead of physical mutilation, the laborers were actually given an exclusivity contract bundled with a lifelong salary. Shah Jahan definitely wanted to make sure they never built anything like it again, sure, but he basically just paid them to retire.
Modern historians explain that cutting hands was actually just a really common idiom of the era. If you're paid so well for life that you no longer need to, or are legally forbidden to, work for other emperors, your hands are metaphorically tied or cut off from the labor market. So it's kind of like a 17th century non-compete clause, just with a lot of dramatic flair.
It's honestly fascinating how taking a historical metaphor completely literally gave us one of the most famous urban legends in architectural history. A boring, bureaucratic contract was slowly twisted by time and storytelling into this super bloody tale of tyrannical cruelty.
But whether the story is just a giant misinterpretation or not, the mystery is a huge part of the monument's draw today. It's perfectly summarized by this quote from our sources: "History is made of facts, but folklore makes it mysterious." Those thousands of anonymous craftsmen who poured their sweat, but thankfully not their hands, into this building left behind a legacy that just naturally invites these kinds of epic, larger-than-life tales.
As we wrap up this explainer on the Taj Mahal, I really want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We just broke down the actual historical reality of exclusivity contracts versus the dark, crazy myth of mutilation. But when you look at the Taj Mahal, what do you think endures longer in our minds? Is it the dry, factual history of a non-compete clause, or the dark, mysterious folklore of a tragically flawed emperor?